Welcome back to the Frequency of Fatherhood Summit. Today, I get the opportunity to interview a man that have been following for years, someone that I really admire their work and what they bring into this universe. This man is a psychotherapist. He's an author. He's a men's coach who's committed to remaining undomesticated. This man just is another guy in our summit. He's bungee jumped over the Nile River. He's dirt biked through the Tanzania. He's trained in the mountains with some Navy SEALs, played soccer in Northern Ireland. He's a military academy graduate. The most unique thing that I love about his story and his introduction is that he fostered 13 teenage boys at one point, while having 4 daughters of his own. He leads an organization in a community called Primal, with an emphasis on building formidable men in a soft and confused era. His core motivation in life is to live courageously, having fulfilled his purpose with excellence. In his free time, he's a blogger, he's an author, he's a mediocre white belt in jiu-jitsu, which I'm sure he's just being very humble there. And he currently is in private practice. Today, I have the opportunity to interview Jonathan Rios, right? And Jonathan, I just want to say first, thank you for coming and spending some time on January 1st, bringing in the new year.
Heck yeah, baby. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise, man. Before we get into everything that we're going to talk about today, I really want to ask you, and I asked you before, is like, what's your why? Like, what made you dive into this work? What made you really hone in on this vision for yourself and your family?
Well, that's a big question. It's funny because you ask people this question, and a lot of people have this pat answer, like, well, since I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a firefighter, and that wasn't me. I've been experimenting my whole life, trying to tap into what makes me come alive, what gets the blood boiling, and for me, it's always been like calculated risk and adventure. And at the same time, I have always had let's call it a heart for people that were struggling. And the way that started to blossom, in my 20s, I took a job working at an addiction treatment center. And I was just a tech, man. I was doing the urinalysis testing. I was driving everybody around, doing bed checks, and I just loved it. And then I figured, well, if I go back to school, maybe I could be a therapist and kind of work in this field. And that's what I did. At the same time, that was when my soccer career, if you want to call it that, was kind of wrapping up. So I had my eyes set on, well, what's next? And I think that's a good question for men as one mission ends. Okay, what's next? Right. And a lot of people never get to answer that. A lot of people don't answer that question. They just kind of go with the flow. So yeah, man, that spun into a master's degree in counseling psychology and lots of apprenticeship and mentorship in therapy and counseling. That spun into fostering 13 teenage boys, then eventually starting my own private practice called Thrive Company. And as I started working in the field, man, I started working with men in general and noticing some of the gaps, like what were men longing for? Why were men so addicted? Relationship issues, passivity, you name it, some of the stuff that we've all wrestled with, honestly. So that actually provoked me to go, okay, I got all these men that are wrestling with these issues. And after I work with them one-on-one, I've got nowhere to send them. It's like they just go off on their merry way. And so I started posting stuff on maybe I could just encourage them with a couple videos or whatever. And I mean, whether they were encouraging or not is left to be determined. But I just started trying stuff, and then just kept doing that over and over. And then eventually thought, okay, I need to build something. And that became Primal. And Primal has multiple faces, but at the end of the day, it's just building formidable men that can go the distance in their relationships, in their businesses, in their spiritual life, their physical life. Guys that can go the distance, guys that aren't just soft, confused, or weak, but are formidable in marriage, are formidable in their faith, are the kind of dad that they're designed to be, right? So we do that in a multitude of ways. We train men through a rite of passage process, which is our 8-week program. And that's really powerful. I could explain that later. Got another training program. It's a 3-day intensive. That's in the mountains of North Carolina. Then I've got a 2.0 version in Puerto Rico, which is for guys who've gone through either of those. And we're continuing to go. This year we have a couples trip to Machu Picchu, Peru. So, man, it's a fun time. But that's a long answer to a short question.
It's beautiful because, like, when I look at you and the work that you're doing, you could easily fit in character, connection, community. You could fit in all the things that we have here. And I want to dive into the primal aspect, because I think I really believe there's so many men out there that they want to be better fathers, right? They want to be more present. They want to be more than just a financial provider. But what I've come to see is that men, we emulate this masculine relationship, the most intimate masculine relationship we see growing up. And we're transitioning from an era where our fathers, they had the grit, they had the work ethic, they were pushing, they did what they had to do. But sometimes, a lot of the men that I work with, and even myself, like they didn't know how to come back emotionally. They didn't know how to come back mentally. And so where I'm going with this is, as modern men, as we transition into this era where we want that work ethic, but we want that connection, what brings about true transformation with the work that you're doing? Like, how are you doing that?
Yeah. Well, let's be honest about something. You can't, no matter what you do, you can't make a man urgent. You can't just inject somebody with urgency or desire to change. Okay. It's usually, in my experience, one of the most effective ways is for you to become a formidable man, the best kind of man, and that becomes attractive to your wife and to other men. Here's what's possible. So you kind of light yourself on fire. You kind of become a lighthouse, right? So yeah, you can be faithful in marriage. Yeah, you can make more money. Yeah, you can be physically fit. Yeah, you can be a man of discipline. Yeah, you can be a man of faith who isn't a freak show. Like, yes, you could do these things. And to model that stuff, like, because as men, we whether we realize it or not, we want to be able to look at an ideal like a hero and follow suit. And I just challenge men, why don't you become that guy that can inspire other people, right? But so we got to start with the small things. And the 3 categories I would have your listeners really focus on is, first off, I can't make you urgent. That's every man's on his own on that one. What I can tell you is this: if you aren't willing to invest time, effort, and money in your transformation, it'll never happen. Because it's not going to happen by accident. You don't transform by accident. There's intentional work there. So time, it's like giving a period of time that's probably longer than you think it's going to be. It's a microwave society. We want our food in the next 30 seconds, right? We want to be a mature, disciplined adult man within the next month. Now we could start the journey, but people don't like the idea of process. They want the result. But we have to start to be men that can embrace the process. Okay, I may not be where I want to be today, but if I can invest time in a particular direction, perhaps I can summit that mountain. Okay, so that's one. Men are unwilling to invest time, and it blocks them from transformation. Number 2, effort. We all know when we're half-assing it. But there's a caveat to that. If you're a lone ranger, I hope your guys hear this. If you're a lone ranger, suppose you're a lone ranger who only runs trail runs by himself, and you think you're pretty damn good because you watch your David Goggins hype videos, and you do your trail running. Everybody's laughing because you've all seen one, but then you get around some real trail runners, and you realize, dude, I'm not as fast or as strong or as agile or as mentally tough as I could be. I thought I was better than I was, right? So we can trick ourselves, we can deceive ourselves into thinking we are giving maximum effort when we're really only giving 70%. We're really only giving 80%. Maybe we're giving 30%. And so the danger of being a lone wolf, that's what I mean by Lone Ranger. The danger, you can deceive yourself. Okay. And we can circle back on this idea later, but if you're a lone wolf, you can deceive yourself into thinking you're better than you are. And if you get around other people that are actually better than you, it'll trigger insecurity in you. Right. So a lot of guys won't even go there because they just want to be okay. Like I don't want to be exposed to the reality that I might not be where I should be. And the last category for the pursuit of transformation, in my opinion, is money. I grew up really poor. I grew up like, as a kid, I remember moments where my dad wouldn't eat so I could eat. My parents are doing well now, but that wasn't the case when I was little. And so I don't even know why I mentioned that exactly. Oh, well, I grew up poor, which produced a poverty mindset of like, okay, so it's fight or flight, it's survival, and what can I get for free? Let me just scrap and get what I can for free because I can't afford it anyways. Okay. But then, over the course of time, I one of the blessings of my life, I received a Division I soccer scholarship because I was good at soccer. So that was technically free, but it was really an exchange of, I'm giving you all my effort in exchange for the scholarship. And that was the first real big investment I personally made into my life was, okay, I'm going to give you guys my talent and everything I've got in exchange for a free, technically free degree. Well, in those 4 years I trained with the Army, and I was gaining a lot of mentorship, a lot of apprenticeship, and a lot of high-level sports training, as well as military training. And then through that course, I learned, okay, if I'm going to develop, I've got to continue to invest in me. And that's probably going to come out of pocket. So I'm going to spare you the details of the story, but I wanted to pursue a career in soccer. I booked a one-way flight with the pennies that I had to Ireland and began trying out for teams with just enough money to eat. And I invested in me in the hopes that I could live out one of my dreams. And so I landed a contract with the local team and did that for a couple seasons. And I kept learning, man, if I'm going to grow, if I'm going to transform, I got to take calculated risk, and I got to be willing to pay for it. Doesn't mean I'm paying millions, but I got to do what I can do in the hopes that I can transform and become the man that I think I can be, become the athlete or the business guy or the father or the husband that I think I can be. It's going to require something. So if it costs you nothing, it'll actually mean nothing. So I pick on this a lot. I love podcasts. I like to read, and that stuff's typically a couple dollars for a book, or podcasts are typically free. But I harp on this all the time. If you follow me, you can deceive yourself if you listen to a podcast or you read a book. That author or that podcaster paid their dues and earned that knowledge through trial and error, through blood, sweat, and tears, and they're giving you the insight, the insight that they paid for. And we can learn from it. We can learn from somebody else's mistakes, but that doesn't mean the lessons get embedded in the bones. Lessons only get embedded in the bones when you apply them, when you go and do them yourself. So a lot of people, I think, are full of surface knowledge that hasn't penetrated the heart. So they have all this knowledge swirling around, but they don't feel transformed. It's not because it's not become experiential. So I'm a big fan of pay the price. Like I go to trainings all throughout the year. I pay money for them personally as a clinician. I have to keep my license up. But I also go to survival course trainings. I go train with military personnel. I'll train self-defense. I'll go to self-defense seminars. I do all kinds of wild shit, bro, because I know if I'm going to stay sharp and formidable, I have to keep pushing. And that's going to cost me something. If it doesn't cost me something, it'll mean nothing. That doesn't mean I'm a millionaire. And I feed my family. It's not like I'm going into debt about stuff. But I will say this: some of you guys, some of you listeners, you keep telling yourself, well, when I have the money, I'll go do that training. When I have the money, I'll get that education. When I have the money, I'll start the business. When I have the money, XYZ. And you're waiting. Guess what? There's this thing called faith, where you take a risk and you step out and you go, I believe this is going to sharpen me and help me move in towards the man that I'm designed to be, but it's got to cost me something. It's got to cost me something. And so I'm willing to give it a shot. And yeah, so that, I guess, let me shut up and just say, unless you're unwilling to invest in yourself, transformation is just a delusion.
You said a lot there, and I want to hone it all in, bring it all back together, because there's a few things that really came up for me, the consistent theme. You talked about formidable in the beginning, right? Yeah. I want to stay with that for a little bit, but you also talked about men willing and needing, in order for transformation, having that willingness to invest, right? And it comes back to the self-worth, because a lot of times, you know, like I can tell you, like before I started my own journey, like my self-worth was, I was a financial provider for my family. Like that's how I showed up in the world. That was my value. And that's what I tied my mission to. So outside of my job, there wasn't more substance. There wasn't depth other than sports and, you know, like the surface level things. And I've found many men that are like that. Their value is tied in their work. So when you take their work away, they don't know who they are or what they are. And tying this into being a formidable man, like within your primal program, the rite of passage, it's this 8-week intensive around what is like an initiation process. And I wholeheartedly believe that we're missing an initiation process for boys to become men, and even men to becoming fathers, some form of an initiation process. How is well, first of all, what is your thoughts within regards to having this initiation process, and how can men become more formidable through that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll preface it by saying this. You said self-worth. A lot of guys won't invest in themselves because they don't necessarily think they're worth the time, or that they don't really think they have much to offer. Okay. But let me reframe it like this. Having a wife, like once I got married and started having kids, I realized other people freaking need me. As a solo guy, I was kind of just like into motorcycles and soccer and travel, and I was content to just eat rice and beans. That's not everybody, but that was me. It wasn't until I took on more load, more responsibility, and something turned on me. It's like, dude, you've got to become the guy. You've got the guy that you're designed to be, so that you can be a better man for them, so that you can be a worthy citizen for your country, so that you can be the guy that stands in the gap when shit hits the fan. So it's not an end in itself to just personally invest in yourself just because. It's like, because why? Because you're needed. Because we need you in the game. We need the best version of you, and you are robbing us. You're robbing me. You're robbing yourself. You're robbing your family. You're robbing the country if you aren't investing in yourself and getting sharp as you can be. Okay, so that being said, one of the reasons I started the rite of passage is because, like you said, a lot of men can't look back at a time where they went, man, I went through a rite of passage, but that was a pivotal moment for me where I made a huge shift mentally, psychologically, physically, relationally. A lot of guys have this unmet question: do I have what it takes? Am I good enough? And one of the beautiful things that a rite of passage will cement in your bones is you do have what it takes. You are good enough, right? And there's a band of brothers around you that have validated that. So it's not just you doing guesswork. They're gatekeepers. See, what a true rite of passage does is it takes a man through a process. The man can't go through the process unless certain individuals go pass, fail. No, not good enough, or that's good enough. You can't just declare yourself worthy just because you did something hard. They have to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And the idea is they want to hold you to a standard to make sure you're up to task. The goal isn't to fail you. The goal is to help you level up your standard, and then you pass through the gate, and now it's official. Now there's an official valid stamp on you. And it's not just external. There's something inside of you that goes, holy shit, dude, I'm different, right? This is a demarcation moment. I will never go back. I'm a different man. And so we take guys through this process. There's a lot of physical training component to it. There's a nutritional component to it. There's a lot of psychological teaching, mental toughness, confidence, identity. And at the end of the rite of passage, we put you through this 24-hour nonstop crucible event that will break you if you're not prepared. And you have 7 weeks to prepare for that final test. Once the guys go through, it's like they've passed through the gatekeepers, and now you're in, right? So we can all look around and go, this guy's dependable, this guy's dependable, this guy's dependable. The reason I know it is because they went through the crucible like I did, right? So that's what I mean by formidable. Guys that finish what they start. There is a pandemic of men that don't finish what they start. They don't finish their marriages. They don't finish their work shift with strength. They don't finish the chores around their house. They just cut corners. This is a systemic problem. It hurts men, and it hurts those around them. So that's some of the stuff we work on during the rite of passage.
Man, I just got a one-word question back to you: is how do we get them? How do we get them there? Like, you bring up so much. If I'm listening to this and it's like resonating, I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is me. How do I change, or how do I take that step?
Okay. So if you like, is this what you're saying? If you've got a listener who's going, man, I want all that, how do I take that first step?
Yeah, like I'm not finishing what I'm starting. I'm all over the place. I need this type of community, right? And the reason why I say that is because it goes back to my own life. When I was in the military, I went through a 6-week initiation process becoming a chief. And I was in the Navy, right? And from first class petty officer to chief, you go through this 6-week initiation process. And I remember through that process, as you were just talking, that what many times I had to understand my why. I had to get on a deeper level of myself on why I wanted to do this in all aspects. I had to up level my communication. I had to up level every aspect of my own self so I could then raise that standard, because I'm not in control of who, the decision lies with someone else. I have to raise that standard. So where I'm going with this is a lot of men taking all that in, they're like, holy shit, that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I would say. We're basically saying, okay, I'm a dude and I want to get better. I know that I lack some stuff and I want to level up. Okay. So you could try to work on your willpower. You could try to work on your personal disciplines, which are good and we should do. In my estimation, we need to get around other people that are already doing it, and then rub shoulders with those people. So if you want to if you have this desire to get better at running, you need to find some runners and just start running with them. And guess what? If you do what they do, you're going to get better. But that applies to a bunch of different categories. So what I'm advising is joining up with a community of people that are already doing the things that you long to be doing, which is going to feel like calculated risk because it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like a sacrifice. And there's a saying in jiu-jitsu, if you want to be a lion, you got to train with lions, right? You might have a longing to be a lion, but if you want to be a lion, you got to make a sacrifice and train with lions. So that would be the first step for me, is switch up your associations. Look around you, go, okay, man, I need to level up as a dad. So there's no good quality dads around me. I might find a guy like you or a platform like this, and I'm going to sign up for the 6-week course, or I'm going to sign up and go to this conference, or you're making sacrifices and exposing yourself, because it ain't going to happen by accident. So that's the very first step. Change up your associations. Intentionally put yourself out there. Don't wait for it to come to you. It's nice to go buy a book and read on it, on fatherhood. I do that stuff, guys. I'm not knocking academia. I'm just saying it's not enough. It's not enough. We need mentorship. We need strong associations. Masculine associations are what will level you up. Iron sharpens iron like a brother sharpens a brother. That's the first step.
I think so many times we just get lost in like how big the task is that we lose step, that we just have to take step one. I don't need to be at step 20 right now. I just need to be at step one. And I want to bring this down to fatherhood now, right? We're a lot of my personal belief around being an elite father is that I have to take care of myself first, right? Like I have to be a servant leader, you have to serve yourself first. Can't serve from an empty cup. And so where I'm going with all this, what are some tips for raising formidable children? How does this fall, us taking care of ourselves, how does this be passed down to our kids?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I can't expect my kids to be something that I'm not. Right. So step one is I need to make sure I'm becoming more formidable. I'm working on my personal disciplines, but I'm also exposing myself to lions and getting sharpened over and over. Okay, so I carry that stuff back into my family because I can't expect of them what I am not. So one practical thing, like I just took my kids camping this past weekend. It was colder weather for Florida, in the low 40s, and but we had to hike miles in to get there through wet terrain. So my kids are up to their knees in water and they're cold, and then we drying out the shoes by the fire, and we're taking the BB gun, we're playing, and I've got 4 daughters, so we're having fun with it, but they're eating unusual food, they're wet, they're tired, they're hungry, they're sleeping on the ground, and yet we come back and they have a freaking blast. I expose them to difficulty. Some lessons are caught, not taught. And I would say a big part of parenting, we do want to teach them with our words, but we need to demonstrate, and they'll catch on as we demonstrate. So what's dad like when he's tired? What's dad like when he's hungry? What's dad like when it's cold outside? What's dad like, when somebody says something mean to him? And they're observing. So I try to expose my kids to voluntary adversity as often as possible. And I usually reward it. I usually reward them after. So after camping, I took them to get donuts, and that was the treat. Hey, girls, I'm proud of you guys. I know that wasn't easy. Let's go get some donuts, then we'll head home and take a nap, But I'm doing it alongside them. I'm not just sending them to do it. I'm doing it, and I'm teaching throughout the process. So it doesn't have to be camping. It's just, let me demonstrate. Let's go outside, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how to mow the lawn. Let's go out. Let's go for a family walk at night, and we'll walk off dinner. Let's walk 2 miles. I'm throwing stuff out here just to say, you got to be willing as the man to demonstrate and lead the way. Don't just teach it verbally, demonstrate it, because a lot of lessons are caught, not taught. Okay. We demonstrate physical activity in our household. My wife works out, I work out. We try to demonstrate eating our vegetables. Right? We demonstrate not watching trashy television. We demonstrate personal discipline with electronics. Okay. We even demonstrate speaking respectfully to one another. And I bring correction when my kids are talking disrespectfully to myself, to my wife, or to their sisters. I interject and go, hey, babe, that's not how we do it. So my kids, it's funny because sometimes my kids will talk disrespectfully to me, and they don't realize it's a disrespectful tone. I gotta go, hey, babe, hold on a second. Just stop. That thing you just said, that's very disrespectful. We don't do it like that. That's not, we're all about respect and honor in our house. So I have to teach them in those moments. So we're looking for these big one-liner banger ways to teach our kids. It's the little nitty-gritty, in the moment stuff. We're always looking for opportunities. Okay, how could I show them? How could I teach them? A lot of times I'm in the middle of something. I'll go, hey, Harper, come over here. I want to show you how to do this. And I'll just show her whatever the thing is. I'm cleaning out the vacuum. Come here, let me show you how to clean out the vacuum. Little dumb stuff like that, right? Hey, here's how you hold a knife. Here's how you don't hold a knife. Don't pass the knife like this, pass the knife like this. Trying to demo little things that we think are insignificant. Those are all parenting opportunities.
You said something that I love, because there's an opportunity, even when our kids are, when we're challenged or triggered by something our kids do, right?
Yeah.
You just highlighted that you take a moment, you teach them, you're speaking to them. I want to dive into your own process, your own story, your own life, and ask you, there's a Viktor Frankl quote that says that freedom lies in the moment between stimulus and response, right? Or react. I'm not hitting it verbatim, but in that space, we get a choice on how we respond. How have you built that space in your own fatherhood, your own journey, to be able to teach your kids? Because I know, like, for me, early on, when my kid did something, I was triggered, I was reactive. Right. And I have my own processes that I've done. Like for me, I use the cold tub. That's like a meditative practice that I really dive into and look internally. But like, for men that are listening, how do we get that space so they can say, hey, you know what? You are being disrespectful. I need to teach you. I need to highlight it. And so we can course correct.
Let's frame it like this. So let's say you go to bed tonight and you wake up grumpy tomorrow because you had a rough night's sleep. Okay. And then your kid, first thing in the morning, asks you for Cheerios. And you're already irritable, right? And so they get under your feet and they're trying to get the bowl and they're trying to get the Cheerios. And you're like, just get out of the kitchen. Okay. Was the kid the issue, or were you the issue? It was you, because you were irritable. You didn't sleep good the night before. So one of the things we have to remember is, a lot of times the stuff that we think is annoying us, we are the ones that's already annoyed. We're the one that's already off kilter. We're the one that isn't necessarily calibrated. We can be the issue, not the child. Your job is to teach the child. The child's new. They came into the earth. They don't know much. You're the teacher. So have we all had moments where we yelled at our kids, or we were short with our kids or our wives? Sure. Yeah. So we always want to go back, circle back. Hey, babe, earlier I said this thing to you. I'm sorry. Daddy was wrong. The way I did that was not right. And I'm going to work on that. So we do want to circle back and apologize. But when you do that 10,000 times, your kid no longer believes you. Okay. So first off, we got to make sure we are calibrated. And sometimes it's as simple as practicing. You wake up, you're irritable, practicing going, okay, before I go downstairs, dude, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I know my kids are going to need things from me. I know my wife's going to need things from me. I know my business partners or my clients are going to need something. I've got to recognize, starting off today, I'm already exhausted. They're not the issue. I'm the issue. So I'm going to work really hard today on watching what I say before I even leave the bedroom. Just setting an intention. Crap, I'm tired. Okay, which means I'm more irritable. I got to watch my tongue today. I'm gonna lock that down. Okay, secondly, I think, like anything, this is a discipline. Discipline's like a muscle. It's like a bicep. How do you get a bigger bicep? You get reps in. Okay. So one rep that I like to do, I like to get out in front of things. Okay. So here's an example in my household. No matter how well my wife and I parent, my kids whine and they do kid stuff. They fight, they hit each other. We don't hit each other, but they do, right? So I'll see that stuff at the very beginning of the day. The first 10 minutes, everybody's awake and they're starting to eat breakfast and they're already bickering and they're already fighting. And I'll go, okay, everybody, hold up. Listen, we are not going to start the day off like this. Okay. And I might interject and go, okay, today we are working on being kind to our siblings. And today I'm watching you. Today we're working on what comes out of our mouth, right? And after breakfast, Daddy's going to do a quick 5-minute reading, or we're going to go outside and take the dog for a walk, or mommy's got a thing planned for you guys. And I try to set the intention to get out in front of all the bullshit. That's what you can do as a leader and as a father. You step into the fray before it gets too bad. Okay. And the more you do that, you can mitigate some of the crazy stuff throughout the day, so that you don't actually have to lose your shit later on in the day, because you already got in front of it. But in the case with a lot of men, they've not led their house very well. So their kids run riot. The husband and the wife aren't on the same page. So it seems like every 10 minutes they're running into obstacles and issues. Well, you didn't lead at the front end. So because I've interjected in the morning, said, hey, but we're going to work on kindness and speaking respect for their sisters. And if you hit, Daddy's got a chore waiting for you. If you hit your sister, I got an immediate chore for you. They know that at the front end. I've set the intention. So 2 hours later, my little one hits her sister. I'm like, babe, remember earlier we talked about this? So you come with Dad. We're going to go do this chore. Or when I'm done with work, we're going to do this chore together. It's stuff like that. And you do that repeatedly. You set the intention. You lead from the front. You follow through when you said you were going to discipline your kid. Like I said, you were going to do a chore. I meant it. You know, I don't have to spank my kids. They you know what they hate? They hate early bedtime. If my kid's out of whack and she's physically assaulting her sister and I have to forcefully put her in another room, I'm going to do that. But I could go on rabbit trails about personal discipline, but the idea is simple, guys. Until we are calibrated, we're not going to be good for our families. One of the most simple things you can do is go work out and get out your aggression, clear your mind, go in the ice bath, breathe, then circle back with your family so they don't get all that hostile energy. You've released that somewhere else. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect. But that's what I mean by calibrated. You are putting yourself in check so that you're better for them.
I resonate so much with that. There's some slight differences between your examples and your family dynamic and mine. Very similar, but just slight differences. So I love it. I resonate with it. And I really appreciate that. I want to hone in on and just knowing that you are an avid outdoorsman.
Uh-huh.
I firmly believe that nature helps us as parents. You know, taking our kids outside as fathers can really help us. Yeah. I want you to dive into that. Like, how can we become better fathers when we take our kids outside, when we use wilderness? I'm going to say therapy. I'm not a wilderness therapist, but I've worked with some. When we start to use wilderness as teaching points and things, how can that up level our games as fathers?
I forget the title of the study, but there's this really famous study where they took groups of people out into the wilderness for 3 days without technology. And they tested their creativity and their problem solving before they left. Then they retested when they got back. There was a 70% spike in creativity and problem solving upon return once they disconnected from technology. So so we want our kids smarter. We want our kids more creative. We want to help them problem solve. It might be advisable to help them disconnect from modernity, from TV, from Netflix, from Xbox and all that stuff, from their iPhones and iPads. You yourself are disconnecting. You're doing it together. So now most of us don't have 3 days to go out in the wilderness and just, lay in a hammock. Okay, but we do what we can do, even small pockets periodically throughout the week. It might just be a jog in the local forest next to your neighborhood with the kids. It might be a family walk with the dog where there's a field, right? It might be going to the beach or the lake or the river, getting some sun as a family. You're the leader. You have to initiate. Don't wait for your wife to initiate. So, I also think the stat is crazy, but I think currently, you have to double check me on this. Currently, incarcerated prisoners get more time outside and more sunlight than our kids do. So it's a real issue. It's a real issue.
Yeah.
Now, we're adults, so we understand, man, it is good. Man, being in nature there's a payoff to it. But kids don't know that. They're kids. So you have to lead them. And guess what? Here's the thing a lot of parents don't get. Your kids are going to go kicking and screaming at first. Dad, it's too hot. It's too cold. Dad, I'm tired. Dad, I don't want to. I hate this. I hate walking. So kids don't know what they want. Kids don't know what's good for them. Their brains aren't fully developed. You have to lead. Even when I was a foster parent, I'd take these kids to the gym. We even did self-defense. They'd go kicking and screaming, but afterwards they're like, yo, Mr. Johnny, I feel pretty good. I feel like I got a good pump. I feel more confident. And there was a relaxed, composed state they would be in afterwards. But to get them out of the house was the real struggle. So you got to be willing to lead from the front. You got to be willing to hold a standard, even when they don't want to do it. You demo it with them, and what that does, it can help develop habits in their own life. I mean, you're a kid. I was a kid. I remember my dad used to do crap like that, and I'm like, Dad, you're lame. I don't want to do that. Here I am repeating the cycle. It works.
I'm just laughing because I remember my dad would do that, and I was always trying to run away from the calm side, you know.
Yeah.
He didn't do it often, but he would take me camping, and I'm like, that's boring, Dad.
Yeah.
I want to wrap this all up because I could dive into this even more, and I want to hone it back into community for my last question and saying, like, if we look at tribal days, if we look at our ancestral days, like we know community helps us thrive as people, as fathers, as moms, the whole nine. It's a two-part question. Like, how do we get back there? How do we create this community?
Mhm.
And how do we normalize it for men to father within community?
Sure. Yeah. To me, you're just talking about the intentional man, the intentional father. So how do we get back to that? Well, number one, we have to admit, okay, let me challenge you to say this. If you watch the Discovery Channel and you watch the herd of zebra that are being stalked by the lion, which one's the one that gets taken out every single time? It's the slow one or the one that's away from the herd. Men do not realize this. This life is like a battle. It's like a war zone. Spiritually, systemically, the world is after your kids. The world is after everything you value and love. The system wants to take and strip you of your freedom. And unless you become formidable, and unless you engage the war for your family and for your own masculinity, unless you engage, you lose. You don't win by accident. So I need to be the zebra that's part of a herd. Okay. Number one, you want to go the distance, go in a tribe, go with a community. Guess what? Communities aren't perfect. I don't care what brotherhood you're talking about. There's always freak shows in any tribe, right? Guess what? Guess what, son? You aren't perfect either. So we have to be willing to accept, okay, I need to be part of a tribe, and I'm not perfect, and they're not perfect. Nonetheless, I need to be part of a tribe. That's my best shot at winning. Okay, but within a tribe, you're going to find some like-minded bros who vibe with you, who challenge you, who inspire you, who hold you to a standard. Most men today, they don't have other men in their vicinity that inspire them, that challenge them, that hold them to a standard, that are like, bro, you're going half-assed with the workout today. Hey, bro, the way you spoke with your wife, that's off. That's not the way you want to be. Hey, bro, I feel like you could level up in business, but you're too satisfied with this. Hey, man, you really let yourself go with your health. Why don't you start working out with me? We need brotherhood. As iron sharpens an iron, a brother sharpens a brother. Okay. It's not just a peripheral issue. It's necessary. It's necessary. And look, some people live in rural Alabama and they have 300 people in their in their town, and they don't really have many options. Okay, so do what you can. Join an online tribe and start getting real with people like that. You'd be surprised where you will end up. I started something in my region because there was nothing like it. I was looking around going, man, I'd like to join something. There's nothing. So let me just freaking start something. Let me stop waiting and let me do something. All right. And then how do we do this as a community? Well, because I'm really tight with some quality men, I'm okay if they need to discipline my kids. Like, bro, if my kid's talking disrespectfully, or if my kid's not listening quickly, or if my kid's being rude to your kid, jump in there. Right? I mean, like, I do that with your kids. They come to my place. I'm the king of the house, So that's one way is we invite men that we trust to help raise our kids when they're around. We're also teaching. Remember, some things are caught, not taught. They're observing how other men deal with their kids, right? So we talk about that as friends. Like, hey, man, my kid's struggling with this. How do you guys handle that? That's another positive. Net positive is because I have a tribe around me. I can go, hey guys, dude, my wife and I are having this issue. Have you guys navigated this issue? Hey guys, my kid is really struggling at school. Do you have any recommendations? I don't know. So it's like a council of wisdom, because I don't have all the answers. I lead Primal, but I'm more interested in teammates than I am in being some influencer. I'm not an influencer, bro. I'm a normal guy who's going to finish strong, who's going to be formidable. And why don't we do that together? Right? We need less influencers and more teammates, in my opinion.
It's like drinking from a fire hose. Like there's so much we can chew on here. Like I really hold, like, this has me fired up. Like I can say that for a lot of these interviews, but this interview specifically has me fired up because this is needed. So tell the listeners, tell everybody, how can they work with you? Like this resonates. I'm pulled to you. I'm ready to jump on board. How do I get in contact? How can I work with you?
Yeah, so my website's the best method. It's simple. It's thrive.co. So it's THRIIV.co. It's a funny spelling. On there, you're going to see Primal Men. There's a bunch of different options for men. So basically, I offer 3 access points: individual coaching. Then there's the Rite of Passage, which is the 8-week men's experience, which is both virtual and face-to-face. I have guys coming in from all over the states. And then lastly, I've got the Primal course, which is a 3-day face-to-face training in the mountains of North Carolina. If you want access to what we've got going and some of the training and some of the mentorship, it's really about mentorship. Those are the access points. I do have, once you've come through those doorways, we have intensive backpacking trips in the Tetons. We've got Puerto Rico. We've got Peru. We've got book clubs for men, masculine reading. We've got a new fitness track we're launching to help men gain weight or gain muscle or lose weight. We've also got a self-defense track we're building out. So I'm trying to just develop things that men can latch onto to become more formidable, especially in the times in which we live. This country, I know you're in the DR, but this country is struggling, to say the least. And a lot of people are feeling confused and lost. And we need a resurrection of strong men that can be pillars in times of chaos. But that doesn't happen by accident. We must be trained. We must be proficient. We must be surrounded by a legion of other men that are competent and capable. But that doesn't happen by accident. That's what we're doing. We're building men from the ground up. And I'll say this, man, I feel like God's on it. And I'm just kind of along for the ride, just trying to follow whatever he's doing. I'm not perfect, but it's a start.
Man, I just want to say thank you for your time. I really do, because at the end of the day, this message is so needed. I'm glad that you were able to, like, really encapsulate all this, because at the end of the day, we need those men. And I'm just very grateful for your time today. And I just look forward to working with you in the future, man.
Yeah, bro. Hey, man, I appreciate what you guys are up to. And I just tell you, man, the temptation is to think, well, other people are doing the fatherhood thing, or other people are doing this type of thing, you know, why me? And I would just say, you got to look in the mirror and go, it's my duty just to carry this mission that God's put inside of me to fruition, and to not necessarily compare with anybody else, and just to keep barreling forward and, you know, walk your trail with diligence and not look at anybody else's.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.